we're going to go and introduce Wendy Brukwinski, our first VP, and she's going to tell you how to ask questions and introduce Steve.
And I want to hear everything Steve has to say, so this is going to be brief. As always, put your questions either in Q&A or the chat on the side there, and the controls are on the bottom. And Steve is the editor of capoliticalreview.com. Make sure you sign up for that because there is some great information coming out there. And with no further ado, here's Steve.
Wendy, thank you very much for this. Is a difficult time for us on a national level. The president is in a tough race. There's been a lot of corruption in the balloting process in several states, including California. Arizona, for instance, sent 10,000 ballots that they know of to people who live outside the state. And that's one of the major problems that they have. You have in Michigan, one night in the middle of the night, 138,000 ballots showed up. Every single one of them for Biden, not a single one for Trump. That says there was a problem there. And so we have all these corruptions around the state, around the nation, which means that President Trump is going to have to go to the court system if he's going to keep the presidency. It's obvious that the media and the post office and the celebrities and the pundits are all saying that he should just give up, but we know better. And the good news is that he's fighting. Now, the U.S. Senate, on the other hand, at this moment is 49-49 with 2 seats left open. And those are the 2 seats in Georgia where Kelly Loeffler got 26% of the vote. The Democrat got 32%. They head into a runoff in early January. Then you have Purdue, who just is under 50% against Ossoff, and that goes into a January runoff. So we're going to be seeing 2 major U.S. Senate races for the control of the U.S. Senate. At the same time, all of this is going on. Yesterday, the Democrat caucus in the Congress held a telephone conference call, and the so-called moderates were screaming and crying, literally crying, that the AOC people had talked about the defunding of police, the moving us into socialism, causing moderates to lose their legislative seats. At this moment, there are approximately 10 seats that went from Democrat to Republican as a net gain. And that means that we are about 7 seats short of a majority. But that also includes the possibility of us winning the 4 seats still contested here in California, where the Republicans are ahead. Valadeo in the 21st district, in the Central Valley, Mike Garcia in the 25th district, Santa Clarita, Antelope, and Simi Valleys. And that race is both those races are within 3,000 votes. And then you have the 2 races in Orange County, which are Michelle Steele, who's about 5,000 votes ahead of her Democrat opponent, and Young Kim, who is about 3,000 votes ahead of her Democrat opponent. So we are very close to winning those seats, but there's still about 3 million votes still to be counted statewide. And so that makes a big difference. On the assembly side, we lost no seats. We literally gained no seats. I should say we gained 1 because in the 38th district in which I live, it was 2 Republicans versus no Democrats. And so 1 Republican won that seat. And that's the only seat that changed hands in the whole state. So now we're still under 20 members of the state assembly out of 80. In the state Senate, we are at 9 seats, and there are 2 seats that are still hanging. One is Scott Wilk, where he is about 500 or 600 votes ahead. And then you have Rosalie Bogue, who's about 600 votes ahead as well. And those seats still have tens of thousands of votes to be counted. So we may wind up at best 9 seats in the state Senate out of 40, at worst 7 seats out of 40 in the state Senate. Now, the reason I bring all that up is take a look at the propositions and how they went. Proposition 15, the split roll, is going down to defeat. That's a conservative vote. Proposition 16, which was affirmative action, bigotry by government, lost. Proposition 25, allowing criminals back on the streets without any cash bail, that lost, which means we put the criminals back in jail until they pay a cash bail. It was one of those yes means no and no means yes type of ballot measures. And so as we look through the results of the measures, except for 19 and 20, 19 being a $2.5 billion tax increase on small farmers and small businesses through property taxes, and 20, which would have allowed women who were raped but had drugs or alcohol in their system or were unconscious to claim it was a violent rape, unlike the current law, which says it's nonviolence. That failed. But in the main, the vote was a very conservative one. So why is it that the people of California on issues voted for conservative measures, propositions, but then when it came to the candidates, voted radical and allowed the Democrats to stay in office by wide majorities in both the House, Senate, and Assembly? And so we have to ask the question, what's the disconnect? Why haven't we as a Republican Party been able to put people into the mindset, if you're opposed to higher taxes, like you said on Prop 15, then why do you vote for Democrats that wanted Prop 15? If you want public safety, why did you vote to put criminals in jail on Prop 25, but then vote for legislators that want to keep the criminals out of jail? So we need to make that disconnect connected once again if we have any chance of winning. Then we have the problem. Now, many of you may not remember this, but there used to be a TV ad about Hertz and Avis rent-a-cars. And Avis used to say, we're number 2, but we're trying harder. Yeah, but they were number 2. And recently, the state party has said how proud they were to be number 2 in voter registration. Well, number 2 doesn't cut it. Why are we proud to be number 2? We rather be Hertz rather than Avis. And so let me give you an example of our voter registration that has killed us here in California. The state party put out a press release announcing how proud they were that since January of 2019 to September 4th of 2020, there were 400,000 more registered Republicans. How great that is. What wasn't mentioned is 2 facts. First of all, the state party had nothing to do with it because they didn't have a voter program, nothing to do with it. But at the same time, the Republicans registered 400,000 people. The Democrats registered 1.5 million people, almost 3.5 times what the Republicans did. And we were proud to be number 2, proud to have 400,000. That's a problem of lying by omission. And let me give you an example on a county level. I had a friend from the San Francisco Central Committee call me yesterday about some issues going on in San Francisco. And I mentioned to him about the 400,000 versus 1.5 million. He said, well, here in San Francisco, our chair put out a press release how proud he was that in the past year, there are 3,000 more Republicans than the year before. Now, to anybody on this call, San Francisco, 3,000 more Republicans, that is great. But that's only half the truth. The other half is, in the same time period, the Democrats registered 75,000 new Democrats, mostly from the NPP ranks. They had a special program getting people who are NPP to re-register Democrat. So while the Republicans were proud of 3,000 registrations, they're only down by another 72,000 because the Democrats registered 75,000. We need to stop being proud of being losers. We need to stop sending out press releases saying we're proud that we're number 2. We should be having as a goal to be number 1, to take over the legislature, to win the governorship, to win the congressional seats. That should be our goal. Not say, well, we're losers, but we're good about it. That's not where the Republican Party is. If that's where the Republican Party is and continues that type of leadership of being proud to be losers, then at some point people are going to say, I don't want to be a part of the losing team. I could watch reruns of Seinfeld instead and let other people worry about it. So that's where we are at this moment on a statewide basis. We are still looking at the 2 Senate seats and the 3 congressional seats to see how they'll go. We did fairly well by only losing 2 state Senate seats, though we could lose 4. But it's on the propositions that showed that we missed the boat by getting people to vote for Republicans that believe as they do. The one good thing that Donald Trump has shown is that if the Republican Party does a serious, honest outreach to Hispanics and Blacks and other minorities, we will win the vote. One of the most interesting things is that on Prop 16, the major group that opposed it is the Asian Americans throughout the state of California. And certainly in your county, you have a very large Asian American population. And we should be working hard to get those people to see that the Republican Party supports them while the Democrat Party opposes them. That's what we should be doing in Santa Clara County. That's what we should be doing in Orange County, which also has a massive Asian population, as well as in Los Angeles County and in Fresno County, which have large Asian American populations. We should be making those type of outreaches, just as Donald Trump did, on a national basis. And the polling is showing that he did get a larger number of Hispanic votes, a larger number of Asian American votes, and a larger measure of Black votes. And most interesting among that, he won an extremely large number of Black male votes under the age of 30. And all those rappers that came out in favor of Donald Trump in the last month of the election turned that around to give those young males the prerogative to speak, to vote for Donald Trump. And we need to take the same efforts here in California. Let's stop being number 2. Let's stop being proud of being number 2. Let's work to be number 1. And so let me give you a prediction. If the Biden team wins, that means Kamala Harris is going to have to be replaced by Governor Newsom. I will also predict that the Democrats are going to force Dianne Feinstein out of her ranking position on the Senate Judiciary Committee, which will probably force her into retirement. That will be two U.S. Senate seats to be replaced by Governor Newsom. If I was a betting person, and I've never bought a lottery ticket, I would say the 2 people to be for replacements are Congresswoman Katie Porter, who makes AOC look like a conservative, and a congressman up in your area, Ro Rahana, to be appointed to the U.S. Senate as well. I believe those are the 2. And why would those 2? Because Newsom is going to have a great deal of problem in 2022, even though the Democrats have such a wide voter registration basis on the Republican Party. The Newsom campaign knows that the progressives are angry at him because they think he's too conservative, too moderate, and so these people shore up his progressive thing. There was a question that was just raised. Well, why doesn't he appoint himself to the senatorship? Let me go to the history of this. Back in 2017, Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom held a meeting. And I'm sorry, in 2015, and they made a pact at that time. They made the pact that Kamala Harris would run for the Senate, Newsom would run for governor. They would not run against each other for either office, and that way both would win. Newsom has made a determination he wants to stay here in California. And so I don't think he wants to appoint himself to that position. But I still believe it will be Congressman Ro Rahana as well as Katie Porter. And if Katie Porter becomes the senator, that district can turn Republican because she had left over after her race over $11 million in her political action committee. That's a lot of money to start a race for U.S. Senate, which she'd have to do on the 2022 ballot if she's appointed to replace Kamala Harris. And that's another reason that Newsom will appoint her first, because she has $11 million to start a U.S. Senate campaign with, and she has national contacts and the ability of raising money nationally, not only here in California. Then we come to where are we for 2022 and where are we for 2024? 2022, at this time, there are two major candidates for the governorship, and that is John Cox and the mayor of San Diego, Kevin Faulconer. Faulconer is a no-Trumper. He did not endorse Trump 4 years ago. He didn't endorse Trump this time, but he wants you as Republicans to support him. I would suggest that there'll be a Lincoln Project against him if he decides to run for governor, because how can we have a Republican governor who acts like Mitt Romney and opposes the Republican Party and the Republican leadership? So I don't think Faulconer goes anywhere, even if he wins the nomination, because I think conservatives will just leave that blank. They won't vote for Newsom for re-election, but they won't vote for Faulconer, who's a San Diego version of Gavin Newsom. John Cox still has the ability, because he does have his own money, to get conservatives to back him. And if he can make the case that he's the Republican wing of the Republican Party and Faulconer is the Biden wing of the Republican Party, we will have John Cox as the nominee, and that will give us a better chance. Then the question is, as raised, will Newsom run for president in 2024? Well, if Kamala Harris is the vice president, he can't run for president in 2024, because if Biden doesn't run, I mean, if he's still with us, I'm not talking physically, I'm talking mentally, he's not going to run for re-election in 2024. I mean, how large is the bunker in the White House for him to stay in over a 4-year period? I don't expect him to be very aggressive, and Kamala Harris will be, and she will run for president in 2024, and Newsom will be aced out of doing that. But for 2022, it looks like Steve Bailey is going to run for Attorney General again. He's a great conservative. There's some other folks, Pat Bates, who is looking to run for possibly Secretary of State or state controller. So there's the Republicans that are looking at races, but we just don't know which ones at this time. Until the dust settles, probably in January, February, we'll start seeing people make the moves. But I'll be seeing it way before then. And on my Friday calls, I will be updating you as to who's thinking of running for which office. So that's where we are in 2020, after the election. We will not know the final results of this election for those congressional seats, state Senate seats, probably not before Monday or next Friday at the earliest. Remember, ballots can still come in until November 17th. So you can't finalize anything. That is a problem. Now, somebody asked the question, oh, John Cox is a never Trumper. You have to remember in 2018 when he ran for, and he was a no Trumper in 2016, he supported Trump this year. But in 2018, President Trump did endorse John Cox, and that made a big difference. And so he may have been a no Trumper in 2016. I'm not endorsing him. I'm not endorsing any candidate for governor at this point. And I probably won't for a long time, because I don't think we know all the candidates and won't know all the candidates until next summer, because there may be some surprise candidates that come in who are quite wealthy and quite conservative or quite moderate within the Republican framework, who will come in anyway. So I'm keeping my powder dry on that. But that's where we are today. And I would issue this challenge. To all of us. We know that the state Republican Party does not do voter registration, hasn't since March of 2013. We also know that the state Republican Party does not do assembly races, state Senate races, or congressional races. Those races are done and run by the caucuses and the delegation, not the state party. So the state party doesn't run campaigns, doesn't do voter registration, does very minimal general population type of publicity, promoting the Republican Party, aggressively opposing the Democrat Party. Very little of that. And that's because you have to know the policies, and our leadership doesn't know policy and can't discuss or debate them. And so the state party has just been taking money in and paying salaries and doing not much. And so what we need to do is create a stronger county central committee. And I believe that what we need to do is transform the state party into an asset and resource for the county parties to develop their strengths. For instance, the state party has a list of 37,500 volunteers, people who volunteer to help the Republican Party in California in this cycle. And as best as can be told, only Placer County got a list of volunteers. Almost no other county got the list of Republican volunteers for their county from that 37,500. And that is a big problem. Then there was somebody who asked the question about the recall. On a recall Zoom meeting about a month ago, the chair of the state party, Jessica Patterson, announced, and I will quote her, "We now have 37,500 Republican volunteers walking the streets of California to get signatures on the recall." In fact, she had none. She did nothing to promote that among the volunteers, among the donors, among those who support the Republican Party. She made a statement that she just made up, because that was totally untrue. So the status of the recall is today, November 6th. There is a court hearing. I believe it's in Superior Court in Yuba County, but I'm not positive if that's the court it's being held in. But it is today for the extension of the ability to sign the petition for 90 days. The current drop dead date is November 17th. And if they win the court case today, it will go 90 days beyond that. The judge that's hearing this case has already given two other ballot measures the right to extend their signing by 90 days. So it's thought that this is the proper judge to have this, and the people behind the recall think this is going to happen. Yes, and Sutter County also is the one that had the court case with Kevin Kiley and James Gallagher that said that the governor's making legislation through executive orders is illegal and unconstitutional. And the important part of that decision wasn't that it was going to affect the election, even though it was an election-based challenge. What it does do, it sets the plate for the next time he issues an executive order that is really legislation without approval of the legislature. Then we could sue on the basis that he violated the court order that was issued in Yuba City by that judge. So it's a long-term thing, not an immediate help to us. So that's where we are on November 6th. Still a lot of indecision. We don't know about the president. We don't know for sure about the US Senate. We know that Congress, the Republicans, instead of being 17 down, will be anywhere between 5 and 7 down from the Democrats, and the Democrats are imploding. And that's a good thing, because as long as they are fighting among the moderates and the progressives, we have the opportunity to say these folks aren't fit for leadership, and we should be number one, not number two. Anyway, I'd be very happy to answer any questions that you have. And this is going to be a very exciting year coming up, as the year of 2021, where we build our volunteer organizations, we rebuild our county committees, we create candidates for not only Assembly, State Senate, and Congress in 2021, but we also find candidates for city councils, school board, special districts, etc., county by county, and build a farm team, train these candidates, train their workers in preparation for elections in 2022. That's what 2021 is about, setting the foundation for 2022. And I'd be very happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Steve. Things are looking dire to me, but I'm glad you find them exciting, because that gives us hope. Okay, first question is from Jim, and he wants to know, in a previous visit, you mentioned a ton of tax measures that went down for defeat in March, and how did things go this time? I have to tell you, in Santa Clara County, they never saw a tax they didn't like.
I'm really sorry to report this to you, and I'm just getting up on my screen to see the exact number. But let me see where it is. 73% passed, and there's still 53 tax measures that look like they're going to pass. So it'll be over 80% of tax measures in the state passed. And God bless you. You people really think that the state doesn't have enough money, and from the state and the federal, the state and the local, you're going to be taxed by $11.1 billion more next year. You guys are rich.
Oh, man.
And the worst thing is, up in your way, you have Caltrain, which had a several billion-dollar thing, and it passed. And my newsletter, I think it's on Monday, is going to have the story. Even with the billions, they're still expecting fewer services and fewer riders. I mean, that's wasting money. That's truly a waste of money, that Caltrain.
It really is. All the .com people that use that to go into San Francisco have all bailed. I have two sons that are working from home here. It's crazy.
Yeah, they don't have to go to San Francisco anymore. And in fact, the major firms in San Francisco have said not till spring of 2021 do you have to go back. And most of them are looking at never having the people back. And several of them are waiting for the leases to expire. Yeah. And plus, San Francisco passed a tax on CEOs who earn too much money. And so do you think those CEOs are going to stay in San Francisco with their companies? They're going to leave town. So Caltrain is just a scam to pay off the unions and the special interest construction companies that donate to the Democrat Party. It's really what that's about.
Okay, I have a question from James. In fact, James is one of our great volunteers, has been through the ROV office many times and taking people in there to observe. So we really appreciate that. His question is, how can we support conservative leaders in the CAGOP, the California Republican Party, to transition away from sometimes literally pro-Biden leaders we currently have? And maybe not everybody understands the fact that we do have pro-Biden people in the California Republican Party.
You know, we have a conservative wing of the Republican Party in California. We have an evangelical wing of the Republican Party. We have a Hispanic wing of the Republican Party, and we have a pro-Biden wing of the Republican Party. We have 5 members of the state Republican Party who have openly done 2 things. 1, endorsed Biden for president, and 2, joined an organization, the Lincoln Project, whose goal was and is to defeat 7 Republicans for the US Senate around the country. That's their goal. Complaints have been made formally under the bylaws, and Jessica has been sitting on them. And the board has done nothing to force her hand on this, nor has the board or Jessica even presented a motion of censure for the Biden people still claiming to be Republicans.
Oh, that's sad. Okay, with the passing of Prop 22, do you think that's the beginning of the end of AB 5? Or
Well,
do
you
you
have
think
to
unions are going to
also,
hold on?
you have to also remember that before the legislature ended, the Prop 22 dealt with the delivery services as well as Uber and Lyft. That's it. But before the legislature ended in late August, they passed an exemption bill that exempted dozens of industries. But one industry in the main they didn't exempt was the entertainment industry and people involved in the entertainment industry. And so that is going to come back to haunt them because, as we all know, the entertainment industry is melted down and really hates people just for the heck of it. And they're going to want an exemption themselves. So I expect that to come up. The bigger news is that the Uber and Lyft spent $200 million in supporting Prop 22. Nothing like that's ever been seen before anywhere. 200 million. Uber gave $60 million to the effort. It's just a massive amount. Now Uber and Lyft are going to go to state legislature to state legislature, read this morning, to get laws protecting their workers from the unions. And so it really has reverberated and big backlash on the unions. And you're going to see a lot of states saying no to the unions on this, so you can't have an AB 5 in those states. And there's going to be efforts in the other states to stop any legislation that creates it. The Republican Party needs to take advantage of the fact that people should be allowed to work under the conditions they want to work, not how government wants them to work. And that's another thing that we didn't do. We didn't piggyback on the Prop 22 people to say, we support your right to work. Democrats support your right to join your mandate to join a union and pay a bribe if you want to work.
I've got a question here. People are wondering, what will happen to the Newsom recall?
Well, if the thing goes, if it's extended for 90 days, the recall should be able to have enough signatures at the end of that time to get their 1.5 million that they need. If it's not, I don't think it will get on the ballot. I don't think we'll have enough signatures by November 17th. So that court hearing today is extremely important.
Okay, so it's a court hearing today, and then we'll know whether it gets extended or not.
Right, and I was just before I got on the Zoom with you guys. I was on the phone with somebody who's involved in that. They hope to have a judge's decision tonight, but they don't expect it to sometime next week. So we're just going to have to wait the weekend till the judge makes his decision.
And do you know what they were appealing on? Were they appealing because of COVID and you can't get out, or do you
Yeah,
know what
they-
the reasoning was?
Right. They use the same language that the two other ballot measures, one dealing with casinos, the other dealing with vaping. I'm not positive what those issues are about. I mean, I know what casinos and vaping is, but I don't know what the initiatives were about. But they use the same language to extend the recall as the people who put through the extensions for the casinos and the vaping initiatives. And that had to do with COVID, that because the governor had closed down so many facilities, the governor is responsible for not being able to get signatures. And this is a recall against the governor, therefore it should be extended.
Makes sense to me.
We'll see if it
Interesting.
makes sense to the judge.
Yeah. Okay. Ari Goldberg has an interesting question here. He says about the president, his lawyer, Robert Barnes, says that the U.S. Constitution gives each state's House delegation the power to certify the validity of the vote counting. So if Georgia, Arizona, and North Carolina, for example, have a House delegation that's majority Republican, and they think cheating occurred, they could overrule the state election officials and declare Trump the winner. Do you agree? And do you like this strategy?
I don't think that's accurate. House delegations have no consideration over the Electoral College. The way the House delegation comes into the election of the president, if there is a tie, or if nobody has 270 electoral votes, then it goes to the House of Representatives, and the majority party from each state makes the determination. So, for instance, in California, there's so many more Democrats than Republicans in Congress. Joe Biden would get one vote from California. In Texas, which has many more Republicans than Democrats, there'd be one vote from the state of Texas delegation for Donald Trump. And that's how they come into it. They don't have, the House does not have the right to hold the validity of the counting process or the electoral process in their hands. It's not in the Constitution. The Constitution only talks about a deadlock, and that's how Jefferson and Adams got solved. And I believe that's also how Rutherford B. Hayes and Tilden got solved in 1876. I wasn't involved in those campaigns, but I do know about them.
Interesting. What do you think? Okay, this is my own question. Of those, Trump would hold these rallies with 40,000 people showing up. What do you think those people are going to do?
There was a rally in Florida, I believe, on Sunday night with 57,000 people. 57,000. It's like a rock concert. As Trump said, yeah, 57,000, and I didn't even have a guitar. And so, no, he's good about that. I think that the good news about Trump is that he has awakened a lot of people. I live in Simi Valley, which is a fairly conservative to moderate community. On the Sunday before the election, a few days ago, we had 2,000 cars in a mall parking lot that started a parade. 3 weeks ago, it was only 500 cars. I was involved in that. And Sunday, we had 2,000 cars. And throughout the state, throughout the nation, they had in New York and New Jersey, they had a car parade that was 10 miles long. And those people will want to stay involved and get involved to take back government from the crooks who stole an election. And there's no way to call Joe Biden a legitimate president after this. He's the illegitimate president with no real standing other than the corruption of big cities and big states.
And I have a corollary question to that. California has this formula where they don't clean up their voter rolls. They send ballots flying. They pretty much don't take care in matching signatures when they come back. And it seems to have spread to many different places across the nation. Where do you see that going?
Well, Arizona, for instance, sent 10,000 ballots to people that had moved out of state in Arizona, 10,000. So that gives you an example of the problems. And it is a major problem. And somewhere, somebody has to sue the Secretary of State's on a federal level to clean their voting rolls and to enforce it. There is a court order, a federal court order against LA County to clean its voting rolls. And I think about 1 million people to be taken off the rolls in LA County. I think that was the correct number. They did nothing, and they've ignored the court order. And as long as they can ignore the court order and no one's enforcing these court orders, we will continue to have corruption in our voting system. California has not had an honest election in at least 10 years. And now we find out that many of the states haven't had honest elections in that time or longer. Now for the bad news. The governor has announced that he likes the idea, Governor Newsom likes the idea of sending ballots to everybody, dead or alive, and he's going to push for legislation to make it permanent for California to do that. You know, this time it was a temporary law just for this election. He loved it so much, he wants to make it permanent.
How is this legal? By the way, I think it was 1.6 million, and Linda's organization has found another 440,000 that shouldn't be on the voter rolls.
Right, it's a disaster. And I can't believe that the Attorney General of the U.S. hasn't sued, not now, but months ago,
Right.
the Secretary of State to have honest voting. And if they refuse to do it, have the federal government take it over. Because this is a crime that's being committed against the people and the Constitution and the elected government. We're electing people not based on the actual votes, but on how many bodies you could dig up from the grave.
Well,
Or how many illegal. We have a member that is a trustee over on the east side of San Jose there, and she says 40% of her parents over there in that school district are fresh over the border and not citizens, and every one of them votes.
Not
Why
surprising.
are we okay with this?
And that's part of the problem is they also have driver's licenses, which that means they then get to vote.
They do.
And the
Voter.
Secretary of State refuses to audit the voting rolls for illegal aliens. He refuses. And no one is sued on that. I mean, we have corruption at the Secretary of State's level, at the Attorney General's level. And I would suggest at the registrar of voters level, even if they are Republican registrars, because they should have audited and gotten rid of these people.
And do better signature matching, because the signature verification is awful.
Not only
Jan,
that,
did you find a question?
oh, I do have one. I think Doug Case brings up another good question, and it says, Steve, given what you just said about lame Republican team here in California, did the currently contested states allow extra ballots to enter the count because they also have lame Republican leadership?
you know, I can't speak about the other states' Republican leadership. I just honestly don't know about it. I know Texas leadership, which is now the chair there is Colonel Allen West is the chair of the Texas Republican Party. But aside from that, I'm not sure about the leadership of the other states.
Well, in considering a follow-up on what Wendy said, considering that if you're an illegal alien and you vote in an election, that's automatic deportation as far as we understand federal law to be. Do you think in Trump's second term, because I believe he's serving the second term, that he can be more aggressive and Attorney General Barr can be more aggressive on this voter fraud issue?
Absolutely. Trump gets reelected. He's seen the voter fraud firsthand, and he'll move heaven and earth to get rid of the voter fraud, either through executive action or by taking over the elections of states that refuse to run honest elections.
I have one question from one of our Vietnamese. We have wonderful Vietnamese for Trump people here. I mean, those people out there, they even flew a plane with a Trump banner behind it, okay? So we really need to build up our coalitions here. But the question is, the media made us believe that Republicans on Mr. Trump only got votes from rural areas. Is this true? Is it true that almost half of the nation live in rural areas?
I don't know about half the nation living in rural areas, but he got big city votes. He got Hispanic votes in Miami-Dade, which isn't exactly a rural area. He got votes in, interesting statistic for you. In California, which is liberal, we'll all say that, socialist, I say that, Trump got a 32% of the vote. In New York, which is more liberal than we are, crazier than we are, Trump got 43% of the vote. So what's wrong with California?
Yes, I think we have a big challenge here, but I think, Steve, what you've told us is we have a big opportunity.
Yeah.
I have not given up on California. I don't think you've given up on California, and we are pledging to work together here to turn the state around. Do you have another question, Wendy?
Yeah, Bonnie Williams brings up a lot of stuff about how people can just walk in, register the same day, and how careful are they with that registration and whatnot. Do you see the people rising up against this? Do you see us bringing some sort of a ballot measure, or what do you think the people can do?
Well, the legislature passed a law allowing you to go in on election day and register to vote and vote. The vote is called a provisional ballot, checking up, vetting these people, seeing if they really are Joe Jones or not. Who knows? There's really no vetting of these folks. So, Wendy, if you want to go, I know you live in, I presume you live in Santa Clara County. If you want to go up to Marin and vote, why not? Just give a different name. And by the way, for $25, you can get a driver's license on the street corners that gives a different name. We do it here in LA. There's a place called Westlake Park in Midtown Los Angeles. And you could buy documents, Social Security cards, driver's licenses, birth certificates. What do you want? $25 a piece. Who do you want to be today?
That's our problem as Republicans and as Christians, that we're fair and honest. But I think that's going to be honored at some point.
Well, the problem that Christians have, and I'm not Christian, but the problem Christians have is they want to be fair and honest and think everybody else is fair and honest. So they are shocked, just shocked, like in Casablanca. There's gambling going on here. I'm shocked. And so we're shocked when we see this corruption, but we shouldn't be shocked. We should be taking action against it and stop being surprised.
I wonder if we could do an initiative, a simple one.
I was just wondering that.
Well,
we should start that. To repeal that law, repeal that motor voter law, and repeal all of the laws on the way things are voted around here, and fix it.
Of course, the Secretary of State will probably
need 1.5 million signatures.
Yeah, but the motor voter law is a federal law, and that has to be repealed in Congress and the Senate, and the president has to sign it. Let's see what happens. I don't think they have the guts to stop that, because the Democrats understand as long as the motor voter is there, all these illegal aliens, not just here in California, but Arizona, Nevada, Texas, get to vote.
Mhm. So this is a federal law? How
Yes,
did that ever
yeah.
get?
It passed. I can't. I think it passed under Clinton. I think it passed years ago.
No.
I just not positive if I can remember when the motor voter law passed, but it's been a long time. But it was passed by Congress, which forced the states to implement it.
Wow. I guess we have a lot of questions here about using Sharpies on ballots and they bleed through. This is what they do in Santa Clara County, and the ROV says, oh, that's not a problem, even on our two-sided ballots. Any response to that?
California, at least your registrar is doing the honest thing. The purpose of the mark on the ballot is to give the intention of the voter. Does the intention of the voter change if it's a Sharpie or a ballpoint pen? Who cares? It's the intention that counts. Now, in Arizona, I guess it is, they're suing because people who use Sharpies given to them by the poll people, their votes aren't being counted. So now those votes are in court to be counted. We'll see what happens there. There's going to be so many lawsuits, so many opportunities for corruption exposed during all this.
So, hey, we've got like 5 minutes left, Steve, and I know, I mean, your time is really valuable and we really appreciate, your insight on everything. Is there anything final word you want to leave with us?
I think the biggest challenge is 2021. We could learn from history, but we know what we have to do for the future. And use 2021. I would use these November and December as planning sessions to determine how you're going to operate in 2021. Voter registration throughout your county, finding of candidates for 2022, training sessions. There's a lot that could be done, but you have to plan it. You just can't wake up on January 1st and say, okay, now what do we do? You have these 2 months to plan, and I would use them wisely.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Steve. And hey, we really appreciate all you do for California and for us. And we hope that you'll enjoy your turkey on your paper plate.
The other day, my wife is teaching a couple of my granddaughters how to play the piano. And so they are learning Christmas songs. I had to remind them, the governor says, you can play the piano, those Christmas songs. Do not sing. Do not sing those songs. You'll be breaking the law. And that's how crazy California has become. But thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. By the time we get together in early December, all of this will become much clearer. We'll know what happens. Just for your notification, on December 11th, throughout the country, the Secretary of States have to certify the votes for Congress, Senate, for President. So December 11th is drop dead date.
Okay.
But we'll know before then. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Steve.
And have a great turkey day, and don't tell the governor, but enjoy the singing.
That's right.
We will. Thanks so much,
too.
Steve.
Take care.
And thanks to everyone for being here. I dropped out for a little bit there, thanks to Zoom.
We had a lot of Zoom issues today, but thank you guys all for coming. And oh, it looks like Steve is going to come back the beginning of December.
Great. We'll have an update.
Yeah,
Hopefully it'll be cheery.
Yes, maybe we'll be more cheery. And for everybody who's out there, I am wearing my Trump shirt. Okay.
Yay.
So,